All right, everybody, welcome back to another episode. This is episode number 149, and allow me to introduce my guest today. We've got a good one, Christina LeBlanc. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Well, I'm doing great also, but I'm also really pleased to have you on here because, as you know, we spoke about this. I've had a number of your other Are You the One fellow cast members on, so this kind of feels like a long time coming. So spontaneous in how it happened, too.
It's spontaneous for you, but it's pretty serendipitous for me. Really happy to be here. And yeah, can't wait to see where this episode goes.
Why is it serendipitous?
My roommates recently started watching Are You the One? And every time that happens around me, I a whole like slew of emotions come up for me. And had some conversations with people recently from the show, and it just brought up a lot for me. So I feel like now is a good time to just talk about one of the biggest, actually, the biggest experience and most like profound experience of my life thus far.
hmm Yeah, it did kind of seem like for a while that you had kind of packed away the whole experience and kind of just, stuck it in your closet somewhere and just never looked to revisit it. Like, was it intentional on your end to kind of like step away? Was there anything in particular that wanted to drive you away from really talking about it, or did you feel like it was maybe an organic process?
Yeah, I don't think it was a decision that I made consciously, but I did start focusing much more on my present life, just like being here in the moment now and not looking so much at my past. Just I've grown a lot as an individual since being on reality TV. And I think the person that I was on those shows is a lot different than who I am now. I think, at my core, I'm still very much the same, but I have also changed a lot. And talking about that experience to me felt like I was kind of, regressing. Um, and I think I've reached a point now where I can, look at it from more of like an outside looking in perspective and not get too like wrapped up in it. And just recognize like how important that part of my life was and how it played such a huge role in who I am now. It brought me out to California. I have some really great people in my life because of that show. And yeah, overall, I'm grateful for it. And I feel like I am at a place now where I can feel comfortable talking about it. I don't really think I wanted to for a lot of reasons. I think there was a lot of like hurt and misunderstanding that came from that period of my life. Are You the One was epic. The challenge was like, okay, it was cool. Like I think I made a joke on Instagram that I wanted to do another show. It wasn't a joke, okay? It was actually a real thing. I would totally do another show, but I would not go on the challenge again because it is there's so much drama and like I just like can't do the drama in that way.
Right. And you and I talked about this off recording, and I do talk about this with a number of my other guests. We talk about like how mentally taxing the whole experience is, both like living it out like while you're filming and then having to return and watch it play out in front of the audience. Like, was there like a period of time that was going on maybe during your challenge run where maybe the fans were chirping or just like the experience of notoriety had gotten to like your head with being in front of the public eye? Because I know Nate from your season also dealt with that very closely. Did that happen for you?
Yeah, man, I wish I would have watched Nate's interview. I'll watch it next. But um so my first challenge experience, I was there for like a week and there was a incident with Tony, which Tony and I had a very like one night thing when he came to San Diego to visit when like all of us were new on MTV and it was just like this random meaningless night where we hooked up. And that was it, you know. So it feels so weird to talk about this again because it's like this is why I get weird because I'm like it's so long ago, but so
It's
that
therapeutic.
happened a
Yeah.
long time before, or like months before the challenge. He wasn't dating um Maddie at the time.
Mhm.
But we had hooked up when they weren't together. And then when I went on the challenge, him and I were like flirting. It was after a really long flight to get to Turkey where we were filming. And we all like were super excited to get there and all got drunk and we were just like being super flirty. My sister was there and she was, because it was Bloodlines, and she was kind of keeping an eye on me. Not that I like needed to have an eye kept on me, but I was also a lot younger and drunk. So I don't know what Christina was thinking, but I did know that he was in a relationship, and that wasn't a line I was willing to cross. MTV, when they released that episode, they made it look like Tony and I hooked up, which you can see us like walking into somewhere together, but then they show like a door closed that's not even like anything to do with us, and they put in like asterisk belt unbuckles and just like made it look like we were hooking up, which like we did not hook up on that.
So the bloodlines hookup didn't occur.
No,
What we okay.
no. And Tony knows that, even Madison knows that, like we all talked about this together, and all three of us know what, MTV and reality TV does. So when that happened and they made it look like, I hooked up with Tony, I got the like rain of hell from all the like fans of the two of them and people from Are You the One just like raining down on me about this thing that they made look like happened that didn't happen. And it was terrible. I had to like deactivate my social media accounts. My like mom took over my Instagram for a while just to like delete all of the hate because I knew I would want it back eventually. But yeah, that was a really, really difficult part of my life after that season of the challenge. And I got invited back. And pretty quickly on Rivals 3, where I was with Nate, I became friends with Sarah, who was, like a challenge vet. And I confided in her about the whole situation from the previous challenge. And she gave me so much confidence and was just like, you know, she had done this before and she'd had her own experiences similar to that. And she just was, telling me this is your time to shine. This is your time to like prove yourself and prove who you are. And she had my back that whole season. And I don't know what I would have done without her. Kellyanne was also like a big supporter of me in that house. I remember when she left, I was just like over being there. I mean, Sarah was still there, so I was okay, and like I looked up to her so much. But I feel like Kellyanne and I got really close on that show. And yeah, Nate and I had our differences from Are You the One, but him and I like put aside all that when we were in the house. We actually killed it together. We did really great, but there was a lot, both of us really didn't love the like politics side of things. And there's just like a lot of the people in the house were, who they are is just a challenge competitor. And that's their personality. They're good at it and they like know how to do the whole like it's like a job, right? Like if you've done a job for years and years, like you get better and better at it. And if you're like new to the challenge or even like new-ish, it was my second one, like I don't know, it has a lot to do with your personality too. Like I'm definitely a type A personality, but I'm more of like a type A that doesn't like to get into like fights and drama and confrontation all the time. I will if I have to, but it's like the last thing I want to do. So in a house where you have to do that every day and they want you to do that, they'll like poke at you to do that, It's just it doesn't feel good. It doesn't feel like authentic.
Hmm. Yeah, I wanted to kind of, take it back to that like Tony thing, obviously, because this was like, we saw what they presented to us on Bloodlines, and then on like future seasons, like they would refer back and stuff. Do you feel like maybe there was like a double standardy type of thing that played a part in that sequence? Because, like on surface, obviously, what you're saying, that wasn't like entirely the case, like there was no cheating occurring, but for the sake of like their story with what they ran with, it looks like a guy cheated with a girl, but then from what it seems like, you got a lot more of the flack than maybe he'd received being the guy cheating. You know what I mean? Do you feel like that maybe had any part in that situation?
Um, sure. I would say yeah, because I'm like, the third party for a lot of the people who were coming after me were, fans of them from a real world. Um, and they followed their story more closely. The people that I think were coming after me were not so much the Are You the One fans who were, following me from that show. I think it was just a different, you know, crew of people.
Hmm.
After that whole experience happened, I still had Team Christina people, especially being able to like share my truth for whoever would listen. Um, it it definitely sucked, and I probably did get a lot more hate than Tony did, but he did, tell the truth and tell like, what actually happened. And Maddie knows what happened too, and like she to this day likes my like Instagram stories and posts and stuff like that. And like we like worked things out pretty much immediately because I am like so against cheating just like in general. And when it comes to like, a guy and a girl in a relationship, if the girl comes to me, whether it's been like I've had exes who have new girlfriends reach out to me many times to just like, you know, talk to me about their own insecurities. And I've become friends with girls that like my previous partners have cheated on me with. I'm always like, team girl, team woman,
Yeah.
So the flirting even on Bloodline should not have happened with him. That was a slippery slope that just like blew up, and I should have known better. And my sister was trying to like warn me, but it's not an excuse, but I was young and I was immature and I was drunk on television. And it's just like, you're just different. I
Hmm.
feel like, so yeah, that was tough. And it was a mistake to even like walk that slippery slope. But, we did not hook up on that show, and they made it look like we did. And, you know, it is what it is. And I'm happy that it's like behind all of us now. Like I'm happy that Maddie's happy. I'm happy that Tony's happy, and I'm very happy. So, it's all good, but at the time it really sucked.
Yeah. Right. The challenge experience seemed to be like a little bit more of like a taxing one, but I think from like an objective standpoint, at first I think when they were pulling Ari the One people in, you were one of like the very first people that they were pulling in from Ari the One. But I've noticed like when people are looking back, like they would probably like consider you one of the more natural transitions from Ari the One onto the challenge. Like you seemed like a natural cast member, like you fit right in, like you were playing the game, you were also having your fun moments, like people enjoyed you on the show. And it looked like for a little bit, you come off your Are You the One season, you go on to two straight challenges, everybody kind of like was under that assumption like that you were like a lifer, like you were going to be
Mhm.
like, continuing to do them. Like maybe did you like make a conscious effort, like, because I have to assume like they had been still inviting you back numerous amounts of times, like um was that like a decision like you just finally decided, you know what, I don't want to go on to any more, or like did you ever consider going on to any more challenges after that Rivals 3 one?
Yeah, I got asked back a few times actually. When I left the challenge, the last one I was on, Rivals 3, I remember telling my friends and my family, my closest like friends and family, do not let me do another challenge because I was so unhappy on that show. Um, I wanted to start my life. Like I wanted to being on, MTV, it kind of like stunts your growth as like an individual in the real world. And I started to notice that about myself. When I did my last challenge, I think I was 25 or 26. And, I graduated college, I had the degree, but I kept having to leave jobs or just like not have any real serious career because I was taking so much time to go on these shows and then do like after shows and, just the whole, it gets to your head. And I felt like, for my own growth as a human and as like a person, um, professionally and personally, I needed to stop doing shows. And and I didn't really have a desire to for a while after that, until recently. And I'm like, okay, I would do another one.
But not a challenge though, right? Just like a show in general.
Yeah, I wouldn't do a challenge, um, because honestly, a few reasons. One, I don't think my body physically could handle it
Yeah.
anymore. I've got like old knees now, I'm old. I don't know how they're doing it still, people who are like in their 30s. I probably like if they call it, I wouldn't, I don't know. When push comes to shove, if they called me, like, would I do it? I would really have to think about it. But I would maybe I've considered doing other shows.
Mhm.
So I might put my feelers out there for things in the future. We'll see.
Were you called for any other like type shows? Because I know they have like other like X's spin-offs. Like I'm sure like they were trying to because Anthony went and did like an X on the beach. Like I'm sure they tried dipping into the well when it came to like your cast as far as shows like that went. Were there any similar shows maybe that you got approached for?
Yeah. So I got approached for Second Chances, which is basically like an Are You the One, like
Yeah.
after show. And me and Leighton were going to do it together, but they ended up, instead of taking more people from previous seasons, they took people from newer seasons. So we didn't actually get the chance to do it. I was actually pretty excited about that. We were going to film it in Australia. But yeah, we never got the chance to do that. And that show, I think, was a bust. I don't think they had a season after that one. So
Hmm. But no other like spin-offs, right?
no, I would be down to do X on the Beach. Um, I think me and Brandon gracing the TV screen again would be funny, but we'll see what happens.
I don't know if he would be up for that though.
Ah, you never know.
Yeah. Yeah, I do want to kind of talk a little bit about like what you've been up to in recent years before we kind of like do like a more of a retrospect on your television moments. Like, could you maybe walk my viewers through like what life's recently been like for you? I could have sworn recently I saw something with like fire and hula hoops. Was that?
Yeah, so over the last 6 years, I've gotten super into flow arts, so like fire spinning, and I've actually gotten pretty okay at it. I performed at a bunch of different festivals. I went to a festival before COVID and performed in Costa Rica. Um, if you, yeah, peep my Instagram, anybody who is watching this, it's easier to see than to explain, but it's just like fire spinning, at Spectraflow if you want to check me out. But yeah, gotten really into that. Other than that, I'm still out in California, San Diego. Right now, I work for a solar company. We finance solar loans for residential homes, I love it. Solar industry is great. Other than that, I've been doing a lot of yoga, just a lot of camping. I still go to festivals all the time. Not all the time, but a good amount. And yeah, just like living my life, trying to, keep moving forward and grow and stay positive and, just do right and have fun.
Yeah, that's all you can do.
Yeah.
I always ask my guests this too. Well, not always, but sometimes. We talk about like kind of like that swift transition when like leaving reality TV into like getting a job. I always like talk to them about like was that a slippery slope when like applying to jobs like because employment sometimes may look at reality TV sideways. It might just be like I don't really want somebody that's been involved in stuff like that. Did that ever come up for you just in like your normal life, maybe when applying for jobs or just maybe in general with meeting people?
It never came up in a bad way. It didn't, I never brought it up in like an interview or anything like that. And as far as I know, nobody has, you know, looked me up and used it against me. I mean, maybe they have, and I just didn't get hired. But I know for my last two jobs that I had, and my current one right now, it came up after I was already hired, and they looked at it as something that was like really cool, and just
Oh,
wanted to hear, yeah, I wanted to hear about like my experience from that, because it's not like I did anything super bad on there. I did what most people do in their young 20s and just drank and like, I mean, okay, I'm the challenge. Most people do not do things like that. But as far as like what I could have been done, like what I could have done to have, maybe have had a negative outlook on me, who wasn't doing that in their young 20s? Just drinking and like hooking up and having fun.
yeah. Well, I do want to now hear about maybe how it got started. I get my guest casting stories. Could you maybe walk me through like what younger Christina was up pre Are You the One and how that process went with landing on that show?
Yeah, so I was, finishing up my senior year in college, and when I was younger, like through high school, I always watched MTV, and I loved all like the reality TV shows. I watched like Teen Mom and Jersey Shore and all those things. And I would apply for like the Real World. I applied for everything. I like wanted to be on reality TV when I was younger. Um, and I kind of fell off that and stopped, watching shows and applying for things, and kind of just like put that away, and was doing the whole school thing, college thing, and partying thing, and um, I remember one day my sister came over and was like, "Well, we got to watch this show," and puts on Are You the One, the first season. And it was like episode 2 or 3. And at the time, I was going through a breakup. So we watched the show, and I was like, "This is pretty good." And then during the commercial break, it was like, "Now casting for season 2." So we were both like, "Let's just apply." And so I applied, not really thinking much of it. And I got an email like 2 weeks later that I was watching my little sister perform at her like musical in, I forget, it was like middle school. But I got the email that they wanted to hear more about me. And I like opened the email on my phone, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like I'm about to be on this show. Like I felt like that was it. So I filled out this like even longer questionnaire. And then after that, they called me, and I had like a phone interview. After the phone interview, I did a Skype interview where I met this wonderful woman named Cheryl, who was probably the reason why I got cast, because her and I clicked super well. Um, After that, I flew out to LA and had an in-person interview, and it went great. I saw Cheryl and I met her there, and I remember how excited I was to meet her and how excited she was to see me. And she said, if you just be yourself, and you're going to get picked. Like all you need to do is just be yourself. And so I was myself. And I just remember going in for my, like the final casting interview, and there was just like lights, and it was my first time in front of a camera, and all of the producers were like sitting in a semicircle around me and asking questions. And I remember they asked me one question, and I think that this, like, they were testing me kind of, but they asked me something, and I had to take a second to think about it. And they're like, "What do you not know?" And I was like, "Can you give me a minute?" Like, and I kind of like fired off back at them, because I was like, it's kind of rude.
Yeah, yeah.
And in that moment, they're like, they're like, "Okay, so she's got a little like feisty side to her." I'm so sweet, and just like peace, love, and rainbows and all that. And but so I don't think they really wanted somebody who was just all going to be that, because I could have gotten walked all over. But yeah, I remember that happening and thinking like, oh, that was good. That was good. Um, but yeah, after that, when I got told I was like a finalist, we had to take all these personality tests and meet with like therapists, and he had to do like physicals. It was crazy.
They make you fill out like this huge like questionnaire thing, right? Like I heard there was
Oh
like
yeah.
over 200 something questions or something like
I'm
that.
pretty sure we had to fill out more than one of those. And you're filling them out with like I was with one other person who was also filling it out. Um, and like she didn't get cast. But I remember us both like filling out this like personality test, and you're thinking like, am I filling out the right bubbles? Like, is this gonna get me cast, like, but you really just like, you can't hide who you are. They do so many personality tests, and like, they do so much like analysis of you, like you really can't be anything but yourself, or else like you're gonna get tripped up at one point of the casting process. And like, they cast me as the perfect role, like as the 11th girl for Are You the One, like where I was at in my life right then, and just like my personality, like they really knew what they were doing when they cast me as that.
Do you have like any theories, or was it ever explained to you like why they specifically had? Oh, can you still hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. Do you have any theories, or like was it ever explained to you like why they like specifically like had you come in like a little bit later than everybody else as the 11th girl?
So when they cast me, they didn't tell me that. And the night before I walked through those doors, they told me I was going to be the 11th girl. And when they told me that, I wanted to quit. I was like, I remember they were like, they told us they took our phones and everything by that time. It was like, it was about to be game on. I did not have my phone. We couldn't use the hotel phone. They told me that I was going to be the 11th girl. And I started freaking out, crying. And I'm like, everybody's going to hate me. I don't want to do this. And my nerves were like through the roof. And I remember I used the hotel phone to call my mom. I was like, I don't give a F. Like, I'm calling my mom. I'm crying to my mom. And she's like, you can do this, just like hyping me up. And the producers who told me that came in a little bit later to check on me. And they were like, listen, like, you're going to be such a big part of the show. Like, this is big, like, for you, like, this is going to be great for you. And they just kind of like gave me the confidence to just like go for it. And I remember pulling up to the house. There was no like in between time, We pull up to the house. I don't know if we got there late, but we literally pulled up to the house. We walked into the house, and then I walked out the door. And like, that's when you see me go, hey, like it was like we pull up, I walk out, I walk through the door. And I was just like, I guess this is it. Like, from this point forward, I'm on TV. Here's cameras, and I've got a mic on. Like, it happened so fast. But yeah, I remember it so well. I don't know if it's that I remember it so well, or I could literally relive it by watching it if I want to. Like, it's all
Yeah,
recorded.
it is often like a thing, like it's like the unspoken thing, because they've done it on the Real World like a few times where they've like voted people on and they've like come in later. Like whenever somebody just on a show naturally, maybe even as like a replacement or just in general comes in late, they're usually like the one that's like ostracized, or like not really included in like the group as much per se. Is that maybe what caused you like that type of reaction at first to like being upset about that and not wanting to go? Is because you thought maybe it would like kind of like put you as like an outcast?
Oh yeah, I wanted to be liked, and I was really afraid of people not liking me because of the role that I was cast as, not like having a fair chance of just like being myself, because I was coming in as the 11th girl who could like boot somebody else out of the game. Um, and yeah, like that's exactly what happened, and it ended up being fine. Like, that night, I'm pretty sure me and Ellie became friends. Me and Paris became friends. And then, very quickly, I became friends with Bree and friends with Jess. And just, I started to build these friendship with these girls, where it no longer was like you know, me against them or them against me. It was kind of like, we're all in this together, and you're no different than any of us. And it happened pretty fast. So thank God.
How much of a culture shock was it then, like now making that transition onto TV with having like all those cameras, then having to pretty much document your every move?
Um, I feel like I was a natural. As soon as once I walked through the doors and we like walked inside, and like, I remember Pratt was making drinks, and he like made me a drink, and there was a camera like right on me. I couldn't believe how natural it felt. Like, it just felt like it felt totally fine for me. It didn't feel weird. it was like I had waited a really long time for that moment, and it was there. So, um, I loved it. I ate it up.
Would you say that like a dating show was like what you were pursuing, or is it you just wanted like reality TV in general, and then like that was just like the new hot thing, so you're like, oh, let me go try out for that, or was like Are You the One specifically? Was that like your number one choice, or would you have maybe if Real World came calling initially, would you have taken that and, as opposed to Are You the One?
Are You the One was the most perfect show for me to have been on. I didn't know of Are You the One when it first started airing. I started watching it when my sister came, and it was like episode two, I believe. And then I went back and rewatched it, and it seemed like the perfect show. You know, you have this like prize that you can win at the end for finding love, and I am still so mushy gushy about love. Like I I'm like such a romantic and I just like live my life with my heart on my sleeve. And if I would have from the very beginning, if Are You the One was always a thing, I would have been going after Are You the One the entire time. It was the perfect show for me to be on. And I think, you know, in a way, it kind of landed in my lap. That's how like the interview process went. It felt so easy and effortless. And I was meant for that show. And yeah, if I could go back and do it all over again, I definitely would. But I'm old now. I'm pretty sure you have to be young to be on there.
It does feel like the takeaway whenever speaking to people from your cast of that season of Are You the One. Everybody always has like the same takeaway. Like they had their trials and tribulations built both like on the show and like with some cast members and stuff. But like at the end of the day, like just when it's all said and done, it seems like collectively everybody just always finds their way back to each other. And you guys have like this like almost like a camaraderie type of family thing that's been built. And I don't necessarily feel like other casts can say that. Like something about your guys' season, like there was just magic there.
Yeah, there really was. We were a very special group of people. I think that, you know, cast members from different shows, especially Are You the One from other seasons. I don't know. I kind of stopped watching Are You the One after like season four or five. But what I've seen is a lot of like influencers who already have thousands and thousands of followers on Instagram get cast. And, you know, I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with them, but they've already kind of like they're going after the fame and their like popularity and our season, you know, like we weren't really like that. We were just real people that they pulled off of the streets of like wherever we lived at the time and we had like real, genuine, you know, authentic personalities that um we really did at the end of the day love each other, and we all were there to like to find love and to win the money, and we had such an amazing time together. It was a really special season, and you know, a lot of us stayed in touch after the show, especially the following years right after. We've all kind of, you know, we're all living our own lives now, and it's been so long. But yeah, at the end of the day, we are a family, and I care about them all. I love them all, and it'd be so cool to see them all again. Like seeing anybody from that would bring me so much joy, just because you know nobody else gets it except them. So yeah, it was really special, and I think it'll always be special. And everybody who was on there with me, I think we all feel the same way.
Yeah, I did see. Didn't you guys have a you had a Zoom reunion or something like that? I think it was not this past year, but maybe it was the year before. Was it 2020, I believe you guys did it?
Yeah, so we did a Zoom reunion when the Are You the One went on Netflix. It was really cool. It was when COVID was like happening too,
Yeah.
so you know it would have been nicer if we could have all gotten together in person. But maybe someday, some magic way, we could all get together.
Yeah. What was it like seeing Brandon? Was that like a weird thing for you, or was it kind of like so many years had passed where you're just like, you know, we're all grown now. It's whatever.
Yeah, Brandon is always going to be Brandon to me. Um, we I can see now, looking back, why Brandon had a difficult time with me after the show. We also never really got a chance to reconnect because, you know, he was in a relationship or I was in a relationship, and it was hard to like connect because of the fact that our relationship was aired on national television. And it's real easy to see me and Brandon, like, just search Christina Brandon, like, you know, and for any significant other who has access to the internet, like, that's not an easy thing to see, you know, especially like I feel like when you start dating somebody new, especially as a female, like you're like an FBI agent, you just want to know everything about them. And um, I can understand why like people wouldn't want him to talk to me or me to talk to him. And it wasn't like, you know, we had this like desire to talk to one another at all. It just kind of happened that, you know, I put that chapter of my life behind me, and so did he. And seeing him, you know, on when watching Are You the One again, seeing him at the reunion, I wasn't at a place in my life then where I really was able to like try to connect with him and just kind of talk about everything that had happened. And Brandon is a very private person, so I can't really speak too much on like anything. I can't speak too much on anything right now. But I will say, like, I have a really good understanding of kind of like what he went through back then and how difficult that would have been was for him. And, you know, like I didn't really handle things in too fair of a way, which I definitely regret. And, you know, if I could go back and like change the way that everything went down between him and I, especially after the show, I would have, because, you know, that experience was huge and he was the biggest part of that for me. I don't know what I would have done without him. He like carried me through that. So I should have done more for him and had his back more at the end of the day.
Is there anything you are able to share as far as like that whole like post show and like just the reunion goes? Because I think like that's like the whole pipe bomb moment where like it gets dropped about like him and Alex, right? And then like they're getting like a tons of flack, right? Is there anything like more to that like story like that you're able to like share as far as like the domino effect with that?
Yeah, so let's just like start by like reflecting on the fact that, you know, when I was in the Are You the One house, I had no choice but to like hook up with other guys after this connection I had with Brandon. And he stayed loyal and true to me that entire time while I was like off trying to connect with Nate, off trying to connect with John. He just like stood in my corner, cheering me on, just like, you know, being like loving me so fiercely and like being so, such a strong supporter of me in that house. Like after the show ended, you know, we both went, he went to Vegas, I went to Pennsylvania, and I had an ex that I ended up getting involved with again. And, you know, him and I, the ex had history, and Brandon was so far away in Vegas. I told Brandon the truth, you know, he knew that I had this other person in my life, and like it really hurt him. Brandon and I weren't in a relationship at the time. Like I couldn't do a long distance relationship with him. It was really hard even for like us to have such an intense connection with one another, to live across the country from each other. Like, you know, it was really difficult for us. So I kind of like fell back into the arms of an ex. Him and I weren't together either, but we had, you know, interactions with one another, and it was easy to just be like comforted by somebody who I had been with previously, and that didn't make Brandon feel good at all, and it just kind of like put me and Brandon in this weird place that he ended up hooking up with Alex. And when that happened, I did have plans to move to Vegas, and that was kind of like what had been planned and what we were, you know, moving towards. But at the same time, like I had this other person in my life that nobody knew about. And I wanted to keep it private because, you know, it was my own private life outside of MTV. So when we went on the reunion and it came up that Brandon had hooked up with Alex, and, you know, how horrible that was, I was really upset and really hurt by the fact that he had lied to me. So, you know, all of that emotion that you saw was real. But what wasn't fair was that I didn't have his back, and saying, like, yes, he did this thing, but he also did this in response to what I was doing. And it wasn't fair. And Brandon got a lot of hate. And I think even still, like people will reach out to me like, oh, like, I love you, but I can't believe Brandon did that. And I'm just like, there is a lot that you guys didn't see and a lot that I didn't share. And it was probably my, like, that I was embarrassed to have, been still seeing this ex, or just, embarrassed by how I handled the situation and like telling, standing up for him after like being so upset at the reunion and not saying anything at the reunion and being so upset with Alex. I guess I thought that like Alex and I had more of a friendship at that time than we did. And, her doing that hurt me as well as, Brandon doing that hurt me. And just like a lot of insecurities came up about, of course, like insecurities would come up in a situation like that for anybody who was dealing with that. But really, like mine and Brandon's connection was just something that I wasn't ready to like. I just didn't know how to handle it, and that on top of like being on in the spotlight on this show and having all of this like new attention from just everybody's opinions, like people, so many different people like reaching out to me all the time, and it was just really hard to like, you're kind of like pushed up against a wall, and it's hard to like make the right move in that moment, especially in the situation that I was in, to be like, you know what, hey, everybody, like hate me instead, and or just telling everybody like leave Brandon alone. Like I didn't do anything, and not doing anything was the wrong thing to do. I should have told the truth, and I should have like stood up for him more, and that really hurt us at that time. And yeah, a lot of time has passed, and I'm grateful because I feel like there's no hard feelings between us, and yeah, like you can't really go back and change anything that you've done in the past. All you can do is forgive yourself and move forward. And yeah, that's what I'm trying to do.
Right. Like maintaining and like being in front of like a public eye is already hard enough. But then especially when you like throw in the fact of like having like a public like relationship is even 10 times harder. You know what I mean? So pressure to do one thing and then reception from other people playing a part in that, it's not like gonna produce like like a maybe like a concise response to something or just a concise like solution to the problem with how the situation should be handled. So I mean, you being young at the time, it makes sense why you would keep private life private and not talk about that. But then obviously now you being able to look back at a situation where, Brandon's kind of getting all the flack here and being able to look back on and be like, well, maybe I could have done this to potentially like even it out a little more. I think that's all just a part of the growing process. And at least like, now you're able to look back on it. And I'm sure all parties involved know that all's good on all your ends and ends have been met, it would appear.
Yeah, we're all good now. So
Even Alex and you, like you guys have talked about it.
yeah, we haven't really talked about what happened, but after the reunion, we had the reunion 2 years ago. We had a very brief interaction. I can't even remember exactly what went down. I think I maybe had reached out, or she reached out just to talk about, because I said that the Zoom was recorded. So I just kind of like talked to everybody about if they were okay with, certain things being aired. And I think we kind of discussed a little bit about that. And, we just kind of were like, it's good to see you, good to see you're doing good. And it was a good, positive interaction. So we've both let that go. And um, I let that whole situation go a long time ago. But I never looked at it as deeply as I have recently to reflect on like what I did wrong through
Hmm.
it. And now that I have, it's like brought up a lot for me that I've wanted to share, which is a good thing that you hit me up to be on this podcast, because I'm like, this is a good place for me to kind of speak my truth, I
Hmm.
think.
Yeah. I do want to ask you now about like another one of your flames from the show. The edit kind of tried to make it look like you and Nate had like developed this like chemistry, right? And then you just like dropped him. But from when I spoke to him, like I think the process was a lot more short of like just a quick like connection than like the prolonged type of connection that they tried to make it seem like it was like a drastic like you just
Yeah,
dropping him thing. Did like the way like the portrayal made it look, do you feel like they tried to maybe like heighten what happened?
of course, you know, it's MTV. Like, of course, they're going to try to heighten everything. They did like take some scenes from when he was like really upset about Shelby, or upset about like, I think an ex, that just like previous relationship trauma that he was kind of working through in the house, and they made it look like it was like about me. Um, but yeah, Nate and I, we had a very short thing. It wasn't like, you know, a Christina and Brandon type thing. I think him and John both knew, you know, that I mean, like, obviously, you know, I was just like trying really hard to not be with Brandon, but at the end of the day, like, I was always with him anyway. So yeah, like I did kind of lead Nate on for a half a second, but it was like such a short thing that, you know, they did make it seem like it was a lot more than it was on when they aired it.
Yeah, and then they used that as like the kind of token clip as to like why you guys were rivals, and like weren't you
Right.
I'm pretty sure you two and like Bree were all like living together while you guys were like rivals, right? Like out in LA, was it?
Yeah, you know, I don't, Nate didn't live with us. He did spend some time at our house, but Nate wasn't living with me it was me, Bree, Jess, and Ellie who all lived together. I When we all parted ways, I'm pretty sure that's when Nate moved in with Bree. But no, Nate and I weren't rivals when we got cast as rivals.
Wow.
Yeah.
I thought for sure like you and Brandon would have been like rivals or something like that, but I think maybe like the X's theme might have been more appropriate or something. I don't know.
Yeah. You know, I was pretty bummed I wasn't Brandon's rival, because then Brandon would have had to talk to me, and
Yeah,
he did not want to talk to
what
me.
was that about? I mean, you kind of tried to rally the troops with all the RU1 people on the first episode to kind of like make this alliance because you guys had a lot of numbers on your side, and then like he just wanted like no part of that conversation. Was that like more of a you and him thing, or was it
Yeah,
just like,
yeah.
oh, was it?
Yeah, he like didn't want to, you know, with all due respect to Brandon, I'm gonna not say too much, but he just didn't want to be involved with me at that point in time at
Hmm,
all.
wow. I thought maybe just the experience as a whole was just getting to him, and that's what made him act like that.
I don't know what was going through his head, so I can't guess, but like at that time for me, it felt like he just didn't want to be around me.
Most fans like would refer to you as like a very underrated competitor. Like on both your seasons, like you were actually like putting up good performances. Did
Oh
you have
yeah.
like did you have like any type of like athletic like background, or was it all just like coming natural to you?
Yeah, I did have I've been super athletic my whole life. I played field hockey, softball. I was like a
Oh wow.
cheerleader. Yeah, I've always been really active. I'm just a very competitive person even still. So when I go to compete at anything, even if it's nothing serious, like I give it my all. And it's kind of frustrating because of how competitive I am. When I lose, I'm like actually pissed, but it's gotten me really far in life just having like a competitive attitude and like a motivational, you know, mindset. So, yeah, I knew I was going to kill it on that show. I'm sure I still would. I feel like if I would have decided to go back and do it, I probably could have, you know, done really well, continue to do well. But um, yeah, the show is so much more than just the challenges. The challenges are the fun part.
Mm. When would you say the last time, if you could recall, that you were called to do a challenge? Like, because this is a popular question that fans always want me to like ask guests that I have on that haven't been on in a while.
Yeah, I feel like I got asked for. the season, like 2 seasons after, got asked for the right after season of Rivals 3 and then the season after that. And I think that that's when they stopped.
Oh wow. What was like your, would you just tell them like flat out like no, like I'm never interested again, or like did you leave the door open?
Um, the second time they called, I'm pretty sure I told them like I'm done doing challenges. The first time I said that I just have a lot going on right now, so I can't.
Oh, okay. I think that's a bummer for a lot of fans then. They probably were like hoping that when you came on here, they'd be like, "Oh, Christina's thinking about coming back."
Yeah, well, the door is like cracked open. I wouldn't say it's
Yeah.
shut completely. Um, and yeah, maybe I'll be on a different show. Who knows?
Do you remember when Camilla and Tony took yours and Nate's puzzle piece during that one challenge?
Do I remember? Of course I remember that challenge.
That
Yeah,
is
it was
like
miserable.
ingrained. That's like ingrained in my brain when I was doing like a deep dive on your seasons. Like that moment was just like hysterical. Maybe like not for you actually living it, but like for a fan, like that was just a
Ugh,
like a comedy moment.
it was so exhausting, that challenge. It was like fresh off of eating a cow brain, and then I can't find my GD token. And like me and Nate are just like dying in the 100 and some degree heat in Mexico, just like pissed, trying to just get this thing done. And they didn't mean to take our token. I don't, it wasn't like something that they like purposefully did, but it really sucked at the end of the day. And yeah, what I remember most about that day isn't Camilla and Tony taking the token. It's eat the cow brain that was like warm and mushy and gross that I had to eat.
Wasn't that the same challenge when everybody was running naked too?
Yeah, I never got to do that, which is like kind of a bummer because I personally love being naked. So I instead had to be fully clothed. We didn't finish the challenge because we had our token taken. Um, and yeah, it kind of was a lame day, but it's all good.
You guys were like constantly underestimated, but you guys just kept coming. And it was funny how like, the foreshadowing worked. You guys ended up eliminating what still is like now two of the main faces of the show. Like Corey and Ashley are still doing them. And you guys took them out. Like at the time was like, and probably still would be viewed as like a huge upset.
Yeah, shocked to this day that that happened, but we did it fair and square somehow, and still feel pretty good about that accomplishment. I don't know how it happened, but it did. And go me and Nate. We're rock stars, clearly.
Yeah, clearly. I'm pretty sure like you guys had like really good strategy or something. Like it seemed like everybody like wanted you guys to win in the house. Didn't it feel like that?
Yeah, we had a good team of support behind us. Sarah and I were close. She was really had my back, like strongly had my back. That alliance between her and Bananas was powerful, So I then didn't even do it on purpose. It just happened that her and I have a very similar, mindset and like personality. And she took me under her wing, and she really helped me the whole time I was there throughout the game. She was like the reason I stayed in the game, I would say. So yeah,
What did you think about Bananas taking the money from her?
gross. But I'm
Mm,
not surprised.
wow.
He's like, I don't even know if he's like a real person outside of just like being a challenge competitor, you know? Like
Yeah.
I feel like he's a challenge competitor even when he's home. He's probably being like a challenge competitor.
Hey, I mean, some people just don't leave like it's actually like a real thing. Like when people like do these shows, like it's very hard to like kind of separate like you versus like you when you're filming a show.
Yeah. And it shows.
Yeah. Was everybody like cool? Like, as far as like the challenge thing went, like when you meet these people, like it's pretty clear like when you meet someone off the bat, you can kind of tell like, oh, this person I'm gonna get along with, like they're cool, down to earth. Was everybody for the most part cool, or were there some that like stood out when you're like, I don't know if this
Mm,
person's
no, everybody, like, not everybody was cool. Let me just say that. Like,
Hmm.
there's a lot of people who are just not people that I would be friends with. Like, not that, okay, I take that back. People were cool in their own ways. Would I be friends with them in everyday life? No. Only like a handful of them I would. There's people that I like can respect and, you know, can appreciate, but like again, people that I would not be like friends with in real life. So I think for me, like when I say cool, is like, oh, you're cool, like I want to be your friend. So yeah, like they're pretty cool, but not, you know, hey, come to my house for like a dinner, you know,
Yeah.
like or let's go out for drinks. And I didn't really vibe well with a lot of the like really strong, like confrontational people because that's just not who I am. Um, and yeah, that's what made me closer to like Kellyanne and Sarah was just the fact that like they were really genuine, um, like kind people. So I
Hmm.
kind of like stuck with them.
Yeah. Well, those are two good people to stick by. They've both been on the show. I've had a good time chatting with them as well, and I could see
Hmm.
why you all got along because you and I had a great
Right?
chat as well. And
Yeah.
thanks for coming on here. I've been wanting to make
Yeah.
this happen for quite some time. I've had, believe it or not, a lot of fans have been like, "Oh, when are you gonna get Christina on?" Every time I have an Are You the One season two cast member, they always felt,
Really?
oh, yeah, they always
Aw.
felt they're like, "Oh, we must be getting closer to a Christina." And it's finally here.
We did it.
Yeah,
Well,
but
wow, thank you for having me on. It's been great chatting with you. And yeah, I can't wait to see people's feedback when they get a chance to watch.
yeah, definitely. I will let you know when this is out and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you. You too.